Good morning, everyone. We are back to the study of the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit Andre Luiz through the psychography of Francisco Cândido Xavier. Let me share what we discussed last month, which was chapter 3. Chapter 3, we found Andre Luiz, Hilario, with instructor Druso, observing the measures taken by the administration of the institution of, it's an institution of spiritual rescue, right? So Andre Luiz learned more about the reincarnatory processes linked to the rescue institutions in general operating in the lower zone. So Mansão of Paz, Mansion of Peace, is an institution located in the lower zones. It is described in the first chapter as in a very dark and dense region, surrounded by dark clouds and surrounded by disturbed spirits. So they see an attack on Mansion of Peace by an army of disturbed spirits. Andre Luiz learns about the electronic bombardment cannons used by the attackers and the defense system of Mansion of Peace that protects all the inhabitants. He learns what would happen if they were able to breach the defenses. As we study in the book Workers of Life Eternal, this is a transitory house of assistance. So he can move if it is attacked, and if it's compromised, he would have to change places in the spiritual world, okay, in the lower zones. And the last part of chapter 3, we see a sick spirit, lethargic and with severe morphological alterations, that was admitted to an infirmary at Mansion of Peace. Andre Luiz learns about the causes of his psychosomatic deformities, and then when instructor Druso asks Andre Luiz to access his mental thoughts processes, he has the intervention of his memory for partial awakening of a spiritual patient, Antonio Olimpio, suffering from hypnotic introversion and mental fixation. And we learn a little bit about the history behind his mental fixation. He killed both his brothers and led a normal life, but with a guilty complex all the time. And then by the end, when he discarnated, everything came very strongly back to him. Antonio Olimpio will be someone that we are going to deal later in the book. In this chapter, next chapter, which is chapter 4, we're not going to deal with him yet. So we just save it for later. It's just to remember that this is the patient, Antonio Olimpio, that we're going to deal later in the book, okay? Let me share now the book. We're going to do chapter 4. Okay. Paco, would you mind reading for us? You are on mute. You're on mute, Paco. You're on mute, Paco.
I hope it's clear. I'm going to coming down with bronchitis anyway.
Oh, if you want me, I can read.
No, I'll do it. I mean, if it's difficulty, then you tell me, okay?
All right.
Can you enlarge that a little bit?
Enlarge, sure. Better?
Well, I got the book myself. Okay.
If you want, I can enlarge more.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, there you go.
That should be okay.
Okay.
Song Newly-Discarnates. We came to a large enclosure built like an inner courtyard of ample and precise proportions. It was as if we were entering a huge atrium, somewhat like certain railway stations on the earth. On the seats scattered here and there sat dozens of spirits in obvious expectation. Truthfully, I did not see one sign of complete happiness on any face. The various groups, some in quiet conversation with each other, were divided between worry and sadness. As we walked by them, we could overhear different dialogues. In one small circle, we heard statements like, "Do you think that now she'll be able to devote herself to making the necessary changes? Doubtful. She'd let her life spin out of control for too long." Okay. Further along, we heard a woman talking to an anxious-looking boy. "Calm yourself, my son. According to Assistant Claudio, your father will not even be able to recognize us. It'll take him a long time to get his bearings." As we passed by, I overheard just a few bits of such conversations. At a certain point in the busy courtyard, Druso kindly entrusted us to Silas, mentioning urgent obligations that demanded his attention. He told us we would meet again the next day. This kind promise led me to ponder the aspect of time. Because of the ever-present darkness, we didn't know if it was day or night. Consequently, the huge 24-hour clock there was like a compass for the traveler. It informed me that it was the middle of the night. Sounds of invisible bells cut through the air. Silas noticed our curiosity and explained that the caravan convoy would be arriving in a few minutes. I took advantage of those moments and asked questions that I deemed pertinent. What kind of individuals were we expected? What sorts of conditions were the Newly-Discarnates in? How was this caravan convoy organized? Did it arrive at the institutions every day at a set time? Silas explained that the spirits about to arrive were part of a group of 19, accompanied by 10 of the institution's workers leading the group. The Newly-Discarnates were mentally unstable, but deserving of immediate assistance since they had neither completely given up hope nor had they completely yielded to the forces of darkness. He also informed us that the caravan was made up of specialized workers under the supervision of an attendant, that they traveled in simplicity without stylish vehicles, carrying only the materials needed to move through that heavy atmosphere of darkness with the help of a few intelligent and helpful dogs. Mansell Pass had 2 of such groups. Every day, one of these groups arrived at that place of a readjustment, alternated in the merciful endeavor of assistance. He stated that they did not have a set time for arrival at the Institute. However, because the journey through the realms of darkness normally depended on circumstantial factors. Silas had just finished his explanation when the caravan entered the huge atrium. The workers responsible for the expedition seemed at ease, although some displayed deep concern in their eyes. The patients, on the other hand, except for 5 mindless, sleeping ones that arrived on stretchers, exhibited obvious disturbances, expressed in some as unpleasant, although peaceable, madness. While the nurses did their best to help them kindly and attentively, And while the exhausted dogs lay down to rest, the newly arrived spirits talked and complained. They displayed a complete mental absence of reality that inspired both pity and embarrassment. Sheila invited us to walk around. Actually, we felt we should lend a hand. The caravan head approached us and the assistant introduced him in a friendly gesture. He was Attendant Macedo, a brave conductor of assistant work. Friends and relatives of the newcomers surrounded us, expressing both joy and grief. A few of the women I had seen waiting anxiously a short time ago were weeping discreetly. I noticed that, as disturbed as they were, these individuals recently disconnected from the dense body displayed all the signs of the diseases that had caused their discarnation. A brief clinical examination would certainly facilitate an individual diagnosis.
Thanks, Paco. Thanks. It was a little bit long, this first part, but I think it makes sense to cover all of this.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking here? So they go to a region, to a place in a mansion of peace, an inner courtyard, right? Ample inner courtyard. And as they arrive there, they see dozens of spirits in obvious expectation. Who are these spirits? Are relatives waiting for loved ones that are going to arrive, being brought, as we saw later. When I say relatives here, don't take it take it as blood relatives. Could be relatives from previous incarnations, relatives because of affection, any sort of relatives, okay? Because again, when we're back in the spiritual world, family ties true family ties are the ones that connect us through love. So this dozens of spirits there. Of course, this is a house of assistance in the middle of the lower zones. We cannot expect spirits brought there to be in any kind of understanding of or peace of mind. Otherwise, they would, spirits that are in better conditions would be taken to spiritual colonies like Nosso and similar. Okay, so these spirits cannot be taken to a spiritual colony like Nosso. But also they deserve, and as we see later, they deserve assistance here. So what Andre Luiz notices in the waiting courtyard there, that he couldn't see any sign of happiness on any face, that they were divided between worry and sadness. Again, these are not guardian angels, evolved spirits. These are all just relatives waiting for their loved ones to arrive and concerned about their loved ones, because of course, if they are where they are, they know that they are not going to arrive in good condition. Otherwise, they will be waiting for them in a spiritual colony like Nosso, right? So you are, let's to make a poor comparison, but for us to understand, if you are waiting for a loved one in a hospital here to arrive, being brought by an ambulance, you're not expecting your loved one to arrive in good condition. Otherwise, you wouldn't be going to the hospital. It's the same thing here. This place is not for sounded mind spirits. These are for struggling spirits, as he explains here later. Okay, so he heard some comments about people talking about those, and he hears a mother talking to the son. Calm yourself, my son. According to Assistant Claudio, your father won't even be able to recognize us. It will take him a long time to get his bearings. So the spirit is not even in an understanding that he discarnated, most likely, or he's just immersed in his own confused state of mind that he won't be able to recognize us. And we'll see later in this chapter one woman, the importance of not recognizing, but that's for later. Then Druso leaves them with Silas, who was responsible for that group of people, of spirits being helped on arrival. And it's interesting when Andre Luiz mentions that because of the ever-present darkness, we don't know if it was day or night. Again, the conditions of the place that they are is provided by the large number of suffering spirits or evil spirits that surround the region. So their mental state causes it to be in an environment of darkness at all time. So Andre Luiz talks about a 24-hour clock. There was a compass for the travel for them to be aware of the time. And on the note here, he mentions that we are referring here to regions embedded in the realms of the earth, of Earth itself, and thus subject to the same laws that regulate its time. Again, one thing that people always question is how time works in the spiritual world. These regions that surround Earth, and they are very connected to Earth because the vast majority of spirits there between incarnations connected to Earth, they live on the same time zone as Earth, day and night and everything else, okay? Of course, spirits like Andre Luiz and Hilario, they never mention anything about sleeping because they don't need to sleep. They reach a level that they can work without sleep. And of course, if they get tired, they can rest. And we see this in some books of Andre Luiz. And then he's curious about what kinds of spirits they are expecting, what the condition these spirits are going to arrive. And then it's described that there were a group of 19 spirits arriving, that the caravan was made of specialized workers, the 10 of them bringing them. This newly discarnate, what's the condition of these spirits arriving? This is very important. Mentally unstable, of course, without clear understanding of their situation and what's going on with them, but deserving of immediate assistance, since they had neither completely given up hope, nor had they completely yielded to the forces of darkness. So, for a spirit to be assisted, it needs to be open to receive assistance. We talked here many times, you can only help those that want to be helped. We talk about this when you're dealing with addictions here on Earth, right? You can only help an addicted that wants to be helped, even if it's struggling and it's challenging. But if the spirit wants to be helped, meaning they haven't given up hope or completely yielded to the forces of darkness. The ones that completely yielded to the forces of darkness are outside mention of peace, the ones attacking mention of peace. The ones that given up hope are the ones that are found in other regions of the lower zones, immersed in their own inner thoughts without sincerely asking for help, like Andre Luiz in the beginning of the book, No Solar. Okay? So that's very important for us to understand, because this is a very common question. Who are the types of spirits that receive help? Where they are taking? How they deserve to receive help? Help is available to all. Every discarnated spirit has the opportunity to receive help, but they need to be open to receive help. We were studying another book on a different study group that I participate in Portuguese, and there is this spirit discarnating, and he's immersed in evil thoughts of vengeance, of of not allowing those that he's leaving behind to take advantage of his possessions, and he's completely consumed in these inferior thoughts and thoughts of beauty and hatred, and not guilty, actually, it's only hatred and desires of vengeance. And there is a very very strong description of how his energies are all consumed by spiritual vampires that take over his physical body at the moment of discarnation. And Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, who is the equivalent of Andre Luiz in the books of Divaldo, he asks, can't we help him? And the mentor said, we are here, ready to help him, but he doesn't allow us to help him. So if he doesn't allow us to help him, he'll be left to his own. Eventually, he will reach a point that he'll open himself to help. But at the moment, there's nothing we can do. Again, that's very important for us to understand. So the spirits that are brought here are mentally unstable, but deserving immediate assistance. So the moment of their discarnation, they receive assistance and they are transported there. So this caravan is brought there with the help of a few intelligent and helpful dogs. I found it very interesting because discussion of animals in the spiritual world is very common, and there is a lot of questions, a lot of different answers. In the books of Andre Luiz, you are going to find animals assisting and helping. You are going to find birds. You are going to find all sorts of things. As I explained before, animals in the spiritual world will only exist if they are able to provide any help, assistance, or assistance of any type of have any influence in the surroundings. Otherwise, a spiritual principle, which is an animal, go from one incarnation to another. It's not reincarnation. Reincarnation is for spirits. Goes from incarnation to another on their evolutionary process. But here, these dogs are being used because they help the caravan as it goes through this heavy atmosphere of darkness. They are used to help. I don't know specifically how, but of course, to protect, to scare the spirits and this sort of things. And then Andre Luiz tells us there are two such groups that take turns in bringing the spirits. And you can imagine, right? They are bringing 19 spirits, around 20 spirits. So who are these spirits? Why they are brought here? Again, there are several of these institutions in the spiritual world. So all spirits discarnating, if we think there are 150,000 more or less spirits discarnating every day, they are divided between those that goes to Solar, goes to these institutions, cannot be helped, stay in the lower zones, go to the dark zones, the ones focused on evil, right? So this works everywhere in the spiritual world. So the caravan arrived. Andre Luiz describes the group as 5 sleeping ones. There's in a state of sleep because they are out of it, and the others are expressing disturbances, some as unpleasant, although peaceful madness they look like. So these spirits are clearly disturbed. Otherwise they wouldn't be taken to this place. They display a complete mental absence of reality that Andre Luiz says inspires both pity and embarrassment. The dogs are resting there. Is interesting, right? The dogs get tired, they get rest there. So Silas invite them to walk around. There is introduce them to Macedo, who was the conductor of the work, and friends and relatives of newcomers, expressing both joy and grief to see their loved ones. some of them crying. And it's very interesting that Andre Luiz mentions here that as disturbed as they were, these individuals recently discarnated from their physical body displayed all the signs of the diseases that cause their discarnation. Again, it is our perispirit, our spiritual body, reflects what our physical body is going through, right? So again, if our mind doesn't understand the process and doesn't understand and fully accepts the reality of the physical body being sick, but not the spiritual body, everything that is happening to the physical body transfers to the spiritual body until we understand. Andre Luiz, when he arrives in Nosso, he's taken to the hospital, he's treated, he's still having his stomach issues. He was victim of cancer right in the stomach, so he was taken there and treated. So all these spirits are going to be treated for their problems that were transferred from the physical body to the spiritual body. And how long does it take for them to heal? It depends on each one of them. Many times, again, when we receive spirits on Mondays on our mediumship meeting, the spirits come showing signs of pain, showing signs of the diseases, very many of them unaware that they have discarnated. Okay? Elmo, anything to add here?
No, João. I think it's complete.
Okay. Any questions?
I have some question.
Sure, Paco.
Actually, two questions. That darkness that is described there, is it a calming, peaceful kind of darkness, or is it the darkness like we usually tend to associate with, like terrifying?
Yeah, stormy.
It's a stormy.
Yes.
Darkness. It's not peaceful and quiet.
No. If it was peaceful and quiet, it wouldn't be dark in the spiritual.
That's what I'm saying, because, well, from my perspective, yes, here, physicality, but who knows? I don't know. It could be.
Yeah, no, okay. It's the minds of all these suffering spirits, evil spirits, suffering spirits that are there that create this darkness. So it's very, because their minds in a turmoil, the darkness is also a turmoil.
Okay. Now, second thing, it says here, display complete mental absence of reality. I don't know whether maybe the whole thing, what bothers me about this is that if the individual, the spirit, has some hope,
yes,
it's not complete. It's not complete psychosis. There wasn't as much lower that I fully identified with the hatred, like you mentioned before, but this one has some kind of touch, light touch.
So this complete this complete mental absence of reality here is in terms of where they are, what's going on. You know, they discarnated. Many of them are not aware that they discarnated. They think that some of them think they are still in the hospital, or some of them think they are being transported to another hospital. The absence of reality is not it's not like a empty mind. It's awareness of what's going on around them, of where they are being taken and what's the treatment process that they are receiving. That's the absence of reality.
They're kind of lost in the airplane. They're kind of lost.
Yes.
But because, once you have hope, at least for me, once you have a ray of hope, you're still clinging to something.
Yes, they're clinging for hope, but without understanding what's going on with them.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
Ebony.
Hi, yes. I think you touched on a very important principle that says we only receive assistance when we are open to receive it. Yes. And it helps us as incarnates when we assess ourselves to ask, am I that kind of individual who know that I'm in need and would ask for assistance? I think for a lot of us here, we find it difficult to be in a position of need and ask for help, even when there's help around us. You see it happening in family members, people who have physical needs, and they find it difficult to go to their own family members or even friends, people who are close to them, to ask for help. So just that principle, I think, when you read that book, it should help us to reflect on who we are as individuals as we prepare ourselves for the afterlife, right? Asking ourselves consciously, am I an individual who know that I need assistance, and am I the kind of person who would ask for help?
Correct. You're absolutely right. Yes. Very good points.
But in a society that praises independence and individuality, and then you add to that pride, it's very difficult, Joe.
Yes, it is. And that's why these spirits end up in the spiritual world without.
I'm not justifying it, okay?
I understand. It's the reality, right?
Yeah.
We go back to the spiritual world in this state of not understanding that we need to ask for help, refraining from asking for help, trying to solve out by ourselves, and we end up, spending some time maybe in the lower zones, not really in the dark zones, but in the lower zones, like Andre Luiz, 8 years suffering without understanding what's going on. And eventually, when he sincerely opened himself to receive help. So it's sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes a while for us to sincerely understand that we need to ask for help. Right?
That's so true.
Yeah, Ebony said very well. It's we need to, if we can learn it here, better for us, right? We will be better prepared.
Yes.
And just to add, we thank Ebony because the goal of doing those study groups to read those books is to find application of what we learn here in our daily lives now.
Yeah.
It's not for us to wait until we discarnate, end up in the spiritual world. It's applications here in now. So that's a very important point. And in the matter of help, Evan, you mentioned to seek help. But another important aspect is even when we don't seek help, because you don't believe we need, because you don't recognize our need, because of pride, whatever reason it is, when help comes to us, to accept it, even if you don't look for it. But when it comes to us, when someone seeks you and say, hey, I see that you could benefit from this and that, at least consider it. At least reason and listen to the person who is offering you something.
Perfect.
That's true. That is so true.
Paco.
Okay. A pleasant-looking woman approached a younger one who was being kindly supported by one of the institution's nurses. She embraced the girl in silent tears. The newly freed girl received her affection and begged, "Don't let me die, don't let me die," showing that she was enclosed in the memory of the last moments in her material body. She stepped forward towards Silas with tormented and tear-filled eyes and exclaimed, Father, you can bless me with the last rites, but keep the life of death away from my soul. I try to wash away my sin in the fount of charity for the poor, but my ingratitude toward my mother continues to weigh heavily on my poor conscience. What did pride blind me to the point of condemning her to destitution? Why didn't I possess 20 years ago the understanding I have today? My poor mother, Father, do you remember her? She was a humble actress who raised me with enormous tenderness. She dedicated her whole life to me. She came down from the festive limelight of the stage to take on rough domestic labor to earn our bread. Society was against her, and my father lacked the courage to fight for our happiness. He let her slip into extreme poverty. He was cowardly and unfaithful to the commitments he freely made. The poor creature paused for a moment, mixing her own tears with those of the poised woman who held her tightly. With her mind fettered to the confession she had made in extremis, she continued as if the priest was still right beside her. Father, forgive me in Jesus' name. But when I was young and had the big dowry my father had given me, I felt ashamed of the maternal angel who had spread her wide wings over my days. I joined with a vain man I had married and kicked her out of the house. I still feel the coldness of that terrible night of farewell. I said the cruelest things to her face. To justify my vile heart, I slandered her without mercy. With the intent of elevating myself in my husband's eyes, I lied that she was not even my mother. I accused her of being a common thief who had stolen me at birth. I remember the look of grief and compassion she gave me as she left. She neither complained nor reacted. She just looked at me, sadly, her eyes swollen from the tears. The woman supporting her stroked her entangled hair and tried to comfort her. Don't be so distraught. Rest. Just rest. Whose voice is that? Screamed the girl, crazed with anguish. And touching the kindly hands that were stroking her face, she explained without seeing them, Oh, Father, I feel like she's right here, next to me. And turning her blank, supplicant eyes to heaven, she begged in tears, Oh God, don't let me meet her again until I've paid my debts. Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner, who offended you by humiliating and hurting the loving mother you gave me. With the help of the two nurses, the kindly woman put her on a portable bed and calmed her down with incomparable tenderness. After helping get the patient situated on the bed, Silas noticed my emotions and explained. The kindly woman who welcomed her into her arms is her mother. What do you mean? Asked Hilario, astonished. Yes, she will accompany her laughingly but without identifying herself, so that the poor discarnate doesn't suffer a harmful shock. Perispiritual trauma entails a lengthy time of disturbance and affliction. Why did the girl decide to confess like that? Asked my friend, intrigued. That happens a lot, explained the assistant. The mental faculties of our suffering sister stagnated in the remorse caused by the huge wrong she committed in her last existence. And since she was even more intensely touched by such memories when she died, she surrendered completely to them. She was a Roman Catholic, so she still imagines herself before a priest, confessing the sin that stained her life. This scene has struck me deeply. The harsh reality offered by the truth led me to a dolorous thought. So, on earth, there was no hidden evil. All the crimes and wrongs committed by human beings would be exposed someday, somewhere. Scary. Silas grasped the anguish of my reflections and came to my rescue. Yes, my friend, you've drawn the right conclusion. God's creation is glorious light. Any darkness in our conscience impacts our life until we wash the stain away with the sweat of our labor or our tears of expiation. And amid the anguish and affectionate appeals as children, parents, spouses, and friends met one another once again, the assistant added. Usually, those who inwardly carve out the deepest hellish conditions and crystallize themselves in perilous illusions are the ones who are brought to these realms of affliction. The infinite goodness of the Lord, however, allows victims that have a degree of understanding and forgiveness to act as selfless supporters of the former tormentors. As one can plainly see, our Heavenly Father's immeasurable love covers not only the glorious lands of paradise, but also the tormented provinces of the hell we have created for ourselves.
Thanks. So this is a very interesting case of a woman that arrives at the institution. The first thing that we note that she hasn't understood that she has died. Well, that her physical body, her died, that she discarnated. Again, death and discarnation are two different things. So she was enclosed in the memory of the last moments of her material body. We don't know how she died. We don't know, there is no explanation, but we know that her physical body died. She returned to the spiritual world. And as we see later, she's a Roman Catholic. She has a priest there next to her for the last rites, and she's confessing to the priest. So first here, why is she being helped? Because with all the guilty and with all the remorse that she's feeling, she's sincerely asking for help. Again, in a very, of course, disturbed way, but you see the importance of religion, of spirituality, any spirituality, any religion. In this case, because she thinks that a confession will help her, will absolve her sins, she has hope, right? So that's what we discussed before. She has some sort of hope. She doesn't really understand, but she has a little hope there in the way that she's confessing that she will be somehow absolved from her sins or something like that. I don't know exactly what she's expecting here from her last rite confession, but that's how she's been able to receive the help. She has some hope. So she describes the situation. She has a mother, very poor mother, an actress that raised her with a lot of struggles. But when she got older and she married, she expelled her mother, accused of not even being the mother, and all this drama that we read here, right? So there is this woman that is helping her there, and tells her to rest, just rest, that she hears the voice, kind of remembers the voice, thinks that there is mother next to her, but ask God not to allow her mother to see her again until she pay her debt. So she wants to repair the mistake she made, that she carries, the guilt she carries, and she asks for mercy, because she humiliated and hurt the mother she loves. So she's put on a portable bed, and then Silas explained that the kindly woman was actually her mother, is her mother, and Hilario is very surprised, right? Is her mother? She didn't even recognize, and Silas explained, yes, she will accompany her with all the love, but without identifying herself. Again, remember, the perispirit is malleable. The mother can change her own perispirit in a way that the daughter cannot really identify her. Okay, she can use a different feature, maybe a feature on of a previous incarnation, something different. She made herself unrecognizable by her daughter. And again, it's all a process of mental state of the daughter, right? She's not really understanding much what's going around. She doesn't even know she's dead, right? That she returned to the spiritual world. Then Hilario asked why she decided to confess, right? And then Silas explained that the mental faculties of our suffering sister is stagnated in remorse caused by the wrong she committed. And when she's close to death, of course, these memories come back intensely, more intensely. And so she surrounds to the memories, and the only thing that she can think of is the harm she has done to her mother, and the remorse, the guilty, and the wish to be forgiven, helped in some way. That's why, again, she's confessing to the priest at moment of death. And then we have all the crimes and wrongs committed by human beings will be exposed someday, somewhere. Yes, by our own conscience, right? We carry our own actions, and we are the ones that, even if we try to hide from ourselves, eventually we will expose ourselves somewhere, somewhat, someday, somewhere, as they said here, right? So he explains also here that the ones that are brought to these realms of affliction, these places, are those that find themselves in this hellish condition and crystallize themselves in perilous illusions, all sorts of mental disturbances. But the important thing here is that God allows the victims that have an understanding and forgiveness, victims that have a degree of understanding and forgiveness. It's not a victim that wants revenge. It's a victim that have already forgave, have already understood, and is in condition out of love to act as selfless supporters of their former tormentors. Isn't that the true objective of ourselves on our spiritual path of progress? To be able to fully forgive, understand, forgive, and help the ones that cause us pain. Again, it's very hard, very difficult, but as we see the description of the mother, even when she was incarnated, she showed all signs of spiritual evolution in terms of accepting what the daughter has done to her, and when she went back to the spiritual world, the love that she have for her daughter, being able to allow her to understand and forgive her daughter, and even more, to be there ready to receive and help and assist her daughter until her daughter is ready to accept that who's helping her is her mother. Until then, the mother will not identify herself. It's a very interesting case here. Okay? Elmo, anything here I missed?
No, I think it's very complete also.
Any questions here? Comments?
I just want to make a comment. Okay. You see, the creation is perfect. And this is like we are, like you've said many times, God is not going to punish me. It's my own conscience that's going to punish me. It's going to create things. So I look at this as a system in which it operates by itself. It's so perfect that it operates by itself.
Yeah.
So the mere fact that that lady is going through anguish, she needed to go through that anguish in order to cleanse herself. And probably the mother came in to assist her in that cleaning, because even when she kicked her out, The mother was cool and collected, with much understanding. So even in physicality, the mother was even ahead of her, well ahead of her.
Yes.
So in reality, this is an example of, for me, I'm thinking out loud. Always remember this. I'm always thinking out loud for your guidance. This is an example of an entity that's advanced, helping someone as a mother. Probably she volunteered to be a mother, okay? Helping someone to experience some cleansing of that inner hellish dynamics. Am I making sense out loud?
Absolutely. Yes. Exactly what you said. It's exactly what you said. And
Okay.
one thing that I add here, if it was not the mother, if the mother was in no condition of helping her, there will be another spirit there to help her.
To help.
Another familiar spirit, another loving spirit that would take care of her. But the most efficient one, of course, will be the victim, right?
Yes.
Not every time the victim is there ready to help and assist, so someone else will be there to help and assist if needed. Okay.
I'm learning my spiritism.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move to another case.
Okay. A poor woman burst into convulsive tears nearby, interrupting our friend, which transfixed the wretched complaint. Who's going to deliver me from Satan? Who's going to deliver me from the power of darkness? Holy angels, help me against the dreadful Belphegor. Thank you. Silas asked us to provide her with immediate magnetic assistance. Nurses came running to keep her outwards from getting worse. Damn you. The demented woman kept repeating, crossing herself. Appealing to divine help through prayer, I tried to neutralize her convulsive movements. She gradually fell asleep. With the atmosphere now serene, Silas invited us to probe her disturbed mind, now under deep hypnosis. I tried to investigate her disharmony through a quick mental analysis, and I was astonished to see that our poor friend bore horrifying thoughts. Deeply rooted in her mind, I saw the animal-like figure of a tall man with a long tail and the face of a degenerate goat with hoofed feet and 2 horns. He was seated on a crude chair as if living in perfect symbiosis and mutual magnetization with the wretched woman. In response to my silent question, the assistant explained, it's a mental cliche that she herself has created and nourished. The macabre ideas of black magic, such as the witchcraft and demonism fostered by the so-called Christian churches under the pretext of combating them, maintaining erroneous beliefs, and superstitions by means of conjurations and exorcisms, create images like this one, which are absorbed by weak, imprudent minds, giving rise to epidemics of hallucinatory terror. These contorted images are spread all over the earth through black magic literature or the careless preaching that lend them temporary vitality, and perverse discarnate intelligences use them in the same way that an artist uses sketches drawn by a child, taking them as a basis for drawings meant to impress infantile minds. This explanation seems to be a fitting key for the solution of many mysteries with regard to obsession, where the infirm start by tormenting themselves and end up tormented by spirits in tune with the imbalance. Hilario has been attentively following the inner duel between the prostrated patient and the thought form in her head, and stated, very touched. A long time ago on the earth, I perused a book written by Colin de Plancy, approved by the Archbishop of Paris. It contained the detailed descriptions of various demons. And I think I saw a picture like the one we have here. Silas confirmed. That's right. According to annotations by Jean Weir, it's the demon Belphegor, who thoughtless church authorities allowed to be distributed in Catholic churches. We know the book you're talking about. It has caused enormous hurdles to thousands of souls who unintentionally assimilate each symbol of Satan, offering them to bestialize spirits who use them for terrible processes of fascination and possession. As I ponder the problem of mental problems in people's lives, the assistant detected my question and pointed out good-naturedly. Here, it is easy to realize that each soul builds the hell it impresses itself in, according to its own deeds. Thus, we have thus the devils we desire, according to the designs chosen or modeled by ourselves. I like that. The assistant's work, however, require further attention. And so we moved the patient to the clean, well-furnished room that was waiting for her. A few minutes later, we went back to the atrium. It was now empty and silent. Only a few attentive and tireless night sentinels were keeping watch.
Thank you, Paco. So this is an interesting case, right? That there's a lot of interesting things for us. First, let's read about this Belphegor here. One of the demons whose portraits were drawn from nature by L. Brenton and published in Dictionnaire Infernal by J. Collin de Plants in Paris, 1863. Okay, this is the... she's seeing this so-called demon, right? And that's the mental image that she herself created and nourished. Again, we create our own hell, as we said later here, right? So they put her to sleep under hypnosis, and then when they investigate her mind, they see deeply rooted in her mind an animal-like figure of a tall man with long tail and face of degenerate goat, with hoofed feet and two horns. Again, a horrible figure that she thinks is the demon persecuting her. Actually, she created the form and nourished, right, the mental cliche. And then what happens? It can create an obsession or a possession form, a spirit, an evil spirit that uses her inferior vibrations to take over if this spirit has any, again, it's personal reasons, right? It's not going to be a spirit passing by that doesn't know her. It's a spirit that has something related to her that is going to connect with her inferior thoughts, with her deranged thoughts, and associate with her. So we talked earlier about the importance of, in the last case with the confession, the Roman Church, the spirituality, but here we see also the dangers on the other side, right? The churches that, under the pretext of combating these demons, actually disseminate their images and end up impressing weak minds and give that, can give epidemics of hallucinatory terror, right? Andre Luiz sees this explanation as a solution for the many mysteries regard to obsession, where, again, how does it start? The person starts tormenting themselves, lower their energies, and end up tormented by spirits that are in tune with their imbalance. Right? This is the process of obsession, is a two-way street association between two minds with the same thoughts and ideas, and the obsessor takes the opportunity of the the weakness of the obsessed to try to influence through their own thoughts and minds, right? Then Hilario describes that he saw this book that was actually approved by the Archbishop of Paris, written by Colin de Plancy, and Silas confirms that it caused enormous hurdles to thousands of souls who assimilate such symbols of Satan, offering them to bestialize spirits who use them for terrible process of fascination and possession. Again, we're going to study possession this Thursday on the Spirit's book, right? So we're going to go to the part of the Spirit's book that talks about possession. Everything connects all the time, right? So again, the danger, and we can extend this to what? Nowadays, movies, video games, all these things that we create that can cause an impression on weak-minded individuals that will carry these images in their own nightmares, in their own thoughts, that if they don't know how to dissociate themselves from the images of what they are seeing and from the impressions, it can cause this sort of disturbance. There is no explanation of how the woman got to this point, what are the reasons, but I think that the process of what happened to her is what's important. Of course, she had some spiritual beliefs. She believed in the demon, and for some guilty processes, she started associating herself with these images that she thinks is the demon persecuting her, right? So Silas explains that it is easy to realize that each soul builds the hell it imprisons itself in, according to its own deeds. We have with us the devils we desire, according to designs chosen and modeled by ourselves. You see how relevant is this phrase? Everything is in our own minds. We construct our heaven or our hell. Again, we are looking at the negative aspect of it, but we can think on the positive aspect of it with healthy thoughts, healthy vibrations, constructive actions, constructive images, and uplifting books or uplifting art, any sort of art, movies, music. We can build a positive ambient surrounding us and connect to more evolved spirits. So the importance of trying to connect ourselves to positive influences, not to negative influences that come from that are bombarded every day. Again, when we are focused too much on news, on bad news, on everything that can cause disturbance, we are going to attract these spirits that will take the opportunity to disturb us. Okay, Elmo?
No, nothing to add.
Any questions here? Comments? Okay, the last part now.
The torments I had witnessed compelled me to think. I had done a lot of studies on thought and mental fixation, but the suffering of these newly arrived souls had filled me with compassion, almost dread. I confess to the kind assistant who benevolently accompanied us that the indefinable torment assailing me, to which he replied wisely. In fact, we aren't even close to understanding all the creative and agglutinative power contained in pure and simple thought. And that is why we must do all we can to free human beings from all the disturbing expressions of their inner life. Everything that enslaves us to ignorance and misery to laziness and selfishness, to cruelty and crime, strengthens the darkness against light and hell against heaven. I like that. Maybe because I eagerly wanted more information about this transcendent topic, Silas added, do you remember reading anything about Marconi's first experiments at the opening of the wireless telegraph? Yes, I said. I remember that the scientist was still very young when he began dedicating himself to studying the observations of Heinrich Hertz, the great German engineer who conducted important experiments on electrical waves. Marconi confirmed the theories of the identity of transmission between electricity, light, and radiant heat. I also know that on one occasion in his father's garden, he used an oscillator along with a pop-off antenna and Brownlee receiver and was able to transmit the signals of the Morse code wirelessly. But what does that have to do with thought? The assistant smiled and said, the reference is significant for our discussion. In addition, let's consider the television, one of the current wonders of the world. He added, I'm referring to the subject to remind you that in radio and TV broadcasting, the electrons that carry voice modulations and the elements that form the images travel through space at the speed of light, that is 186,000 miles per second. That means that in just one location, a broadcasting and a receiving session can both operate at the same time. Hence, in 1 second, images and words can be sent and received simultaneously after having crossed immense distances in space in an infinitesimal fraction of time. Now, let us picture our thought as a living and active force whose speed is even faster than light. Emitted by us, it unavoidably returns to us, compelling us to live of our own accord in its wave of created forms, which naturally fix themselves in our mind when fed by the fuel of our desires and attention. Hence, the vital need for us always to keep ourselves in the noblest ideals and purest purposes of life, due to the fact that energies attract other energies of the same kind. Thus, when we dwell on vice or darkness, the mental forces that we exteriorize then return to our mind, forces which are reanimated and intensified by the elements in tune with them. Consequently, we reinforce the bars of the prison in which we thoughtlessly remain, making our soul a closed world, where the voices and images of our own thoughts combine with the suggestions of those who are in tune with our behavior, thereby imposing recurrent hallucination on us and temporarily neutralizing our senses. And after a short pause, he concluded, that is why once the somatic body disappears in the ordinary phenomenon of death, the discarnate spirit moving in a vehicle more plastic and more subject to influences can spend a long time as a prisoner of its unconstructive creations and remain in vast regions of suffering and illusion together with those who share the same deceits and nightmares. The explanation could not have been clearer. Hilario and I became silent, overcome with the same feeling of respect and reflection. Silas perceived our inner attitude and generously invited us to take a break so that we could spend a few hours resting and thinking. And please tell me in English now. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little bit.
It's about the thoughts and vibrations, right?
Yes.
So first, he says that we are not even close to understand all the creative and agglutinative power contained in the pure and simple thought. So that's the first thing. We are here, we are barely scratching the surface, right? So he says that everything that enslaves us to ignorance and misery, to laziness and selfishness, to cruelty and crime, strengthens the darkness against the light and hell against heaven. Again, it's talking about the whole population of this planet, right? As we strengthen the darkness, it makes it difficult for us as a community, as a population, as the planet to evolve. And then he explains a little bit about Marconi was the inventor of the radio, right? That he studied hertz, and he goes to explain how his theory of transmission between electricity, light, experiments he made. And then again, this note here, the book was written in 1956, television was already it's not very, but was widespread in the world. You know, some homes already had television. In 1956, television started here in this country, I believe, in the end of the 30s, beginning of the 40s, very rudimentary televisions. So he talks about the TV broadcast, radio and TV broadcasting, right? That can be transmitted to every place that has a reception at the speed of 186,000 miles per second, or 300,000 kilometers per second. And he says, our thought, you have to think of our thought as a living and active force whose speed is even faster than light. What do you mean that?
Wow.
Faster than light. When we think of a place, we are there in terms of when you are in the spiritual world, right? So our thought travels at immediate speed, right? That's how the spirits explain the evolved spirits in the spiritual world. They think of a place and they are there. That's the speed of thought. Of course, to get there, we need to develop our understanding, our evolution. But what matters here is all the thoughts that we emit returns to us, and we live in accord to our own wave of created forms that fix themselves in our minds when fed by the fuel of our desires and attentions. Okay? This applies to positive or negative thoughts. They all return to us in the sense, when you have a thought, you put it out there, but at the same time, it comes back to you, stays. We keep all our thoughts stored somewhere in our eternal spirits. And of course, we give power to these thoughts as much as we dwell on them, okay? Positive or negative. Again, we're talking about both here, right? So we create our own world within our thoughts. So when we dwell on vice or darkness, the mental forces that we exteriorize then return to our mind, and then are reanimated and intensified by the elements in tune with them. Again, we send out our thoughts. Those that vibrate at the same level with us are attracted by our mental forces. And when this thought, in a way, come back, which is immediate, right? Because it's faster than light, it brings together with these thoughts, attracts those that are going to connect with us through our thoughts. Again, positive or negative. When it's negative, we are going to attract inferior spirits that have something personal or sympathetic to these thoughts, and they are going to connect with us, right? If it's person, they may try to influence us, attack us, or anything like that. If it's not personal, it's just for some inferior tendencies we have, and they want to share with us. You know, maybe could be food, could be drinking, could be sex, anything that they are interested there in the spiritual world to connect with us, so they can feel what they used to feel here when they were incarnated and the things they miss. That's the non-personal connections that we can attract to ourselves. That are the easy ones to get rid of. It's just a matter of changing the vibrations. But the ones that are personally connected with us is a little bit more difficult. Now, what happens when the physical body dies, the somatic body disappears, the physical body dies, the discarnate spirit, living now with the perispirit, which is more plastic and more subject to influences, as we study in the book, for instance, Liberation, when Gregorio was influencing those around him, you know, the woman that he turns into a wolf, right? We can spend a long time as a prisoner of our own unconstructive creations and remain in the regions of suffering and illusion, together with those who share the same deceits and nightmares. Meaning, as long as it takes for us to get rid of those inferior thoughts or sincerely ask for help and assistance, we can stay in these regions of suffering for a very long time. Again, the example we have is Andre Luiz, that spent 8 years there, according to his description in the book No Solar, in a region that he was in the lower zones. He was not in a dark place like Gregorio, in an evil place that you had a leader. The lower zone that Andre Luiz was just a place where spirits, disoriented spirits, immersed in a lack of understanding, guilt, and this lack of clear conscience, stay until they sincerely get tired and help for assistance. Okay, so that was the explanation here. Elmo, anything to add here?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, okay, so that's the end of the chapter. Next month we are going to see more of these cases, chapter called Sickly Souls. Any final questions, comments here? Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Just a couple of announcements. We have the today the release of the new edition of the Spiritist Review. Is the sorry. I'm just trying to find which is the number 18 of the Spiritist Review, and it talks about plurality of worlds. The woman being is far from being the first is the theme of the issue 19, actually, 19, sorry, of this Spiritist Review. It'll be available on the email that we send every week. Tomorrow will be available there, the link. And you can access also through the International Spiritist Council website. It's always very interesting, a lot of very good articles. There is a very good article that I translated. It's the first one that is called God, The Crisis of God. It's really interesting article. I would highly recommend if you can. Okay.
Excuse me, we can access all the reviews there, though.
Yes, you can see, you can read it online. It's free of it's for free. You can access online. It's going to be on our email tomorrow. Okay, the official release is this afternoon, so it's going to be released this afternoon, and that will be available for you to read. Okay, next Sunday is the second Sunday of the month, so we're going to have the book Jesus in the Home. We're going to continue with the book Jesus in the Home. And I believe Anna is going to be the one presenting to us. I think that's all for us. Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, thank you very much, John. Thank you, Elmo, and thank you, Paco, for reading for us today and all who are here participating. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together again for our studies of the book Action and Reaction, being Chapter 4, Some Newly-Discarnates. Mentally unstable spirits are transported to the lower zones, to a house of assistance. They have hope and the desire for assistance. Concerned loved ones await their arrival. It's a stormy, dark region that has a 24-hour clock for reference. Intelligent helpers and dogs assist the caravan's expedition, and they can take a rest. Excuse me. Newly arrived spirit patients are welcomed and comforted because they are having mental remorse and guilt. Memories arise from the impacted malleable perispirit. However, they may not realize their body has died and are in the spirit world, but they may have the belief in a religious benefactor, such as a priest, who will be helpful and who may be an intermediary for their soul, or perhaps another loving, familiar individual, such as a mother. Deeply rooted thoughts can create a mental image, which can be festered and continued by thinking, which lowers the vibration and invites spirits of a negative influence. We construct our heaven or our hell. Thought is faster than the speed of light. This impacts both positive and negative thoughts, which we store in our spirit, and which creates our reality within and the influences that are surrounding us. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all of our participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, they may expand, they may prosper, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we remind ourselves to go forth as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.